What is going on, guys? My name is Jack McNeil of BaseballCentral.com. As the hot stove starts to heat up, we will be in Nashville next week for the baseball winter meetings alongside my colleagues Jeff Snyder, Nick Hamlin, and Robert Murray. Now, I want to get right to it. The St. Louis Cardinals are expected to have a very busy offseason, as they have more money to play with this offseason than really ever in recent history, and will have more money down the road able to commit to long-term contracts. That being said, the St. Louis Cardinals are not known for going out in the free agent market and getting starting pitchers or big-name outfielders. The last time they did that was Matt Holliday, and even their John Mozeliak, their GM, admitted it didn't really feel like a free agent market per se because he'd already been with the Cardinals. At least that's how people were perceiving the deal. But for them, that was a huge deal. I mean, $120 million over 7 years for Matt Holliday. That not only signified basically the end of Albert Pujols' era in St. Louis, as there's no way for them to sign a $250 million contract with Pujols and a $120 million contract with Holliday, which has been and is the highest contract in history for the St. Louis Cardinals. Then the Cardinals locked up Adam Wainwright a few years later on a more team-friendly contract, 5 years, around $100 million. Close to Zimmerman's contract, sort of comparable. Zimmerman's was even more. And they've locked up Yadier Molina to a team-friendly contract, 5 years, around $80 million. This was before the Brian McCann signing. Other free agent catchers were making a ridiculous amount of money as well. So market values have gone up, and the Cardinals have basically decided not to play in the free agent market until this year. Until Lance Lynn has gone down of injury, until their starting pitching staff every year enters with 6 candidates and then ends up having to acquire someone because 2 or 3 guys get hurt during the season, and until they're at a point where their offense needs some help. Matt Adams was not reliable last season as he was hurt. Matt Holliday was hurt. They have a bunch of youngsters. Stephen Piscotty looks to be a star in the future and can play a big role in the St. Louis Cardinals this upcoming year. Randall Grichuk, acquired in the David Freese trade, looks to be the new center fielder with some pop. There's a lot of good things going for the St. Louis Cardinals, but to compete with the Chicago Cubs and even the Pirates, if they're able to make the right moves this offseason, the Cardinals will have to complement their young roster with some guys who have some pop. The Cardinals, despite being the best team in baseball last year, have some of the lowest marks in power, in isolated power, and overall average for the team. Now, their run production is a huge problem for this team. Their offense as a whole was not consistent, and it was near the bottom of the pack in the National League and in the major leagues. It is time for a big change in St. Louis. The question is that going to happen through acquiring an ace on the free agent market, making a trade, or looking at the offense and balancing it with the pitching? What I mean by that is to say, can you really expect the Cardinals to go out and get Chris Davis and a David Price? Can you expect them to go and re-sign Jason Hayward, who's been on the Cardinals in 2015, and then also be able to get a guy like David Price? Now, it's possible they have the money to do so because of an upcoming TV deal that by 2017 adds $55 million and continually rises. And with ticket prices steady, the St. Louis Cardinals can outspend their market. I mean, they're a mid-sized market team, but they're entering the top 10 in payrolls the last few years, and their ownership has made it clear that the payroll can go up, and it will go up. If they had payroll muscle last year, they have real payroll flexibility this year, as Derek Gould pointed out in a great column on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And they are getting kind of viewed as the team that could spend a lot of money this winter. I mean, they could get 2 of the top free agents. I don't think they will. It is not like the Cardinals, and I don't foresee them going from a team that doesn't, partake in free agency to all of a sudden, makes these huge moves on guys that are over 30, over 32 on these 6, 7-year deals. But what I could see is they go all out on Jason Hayward, who is 26, or they go out and get maybe not Cespedes, but someone on the free agent market, an outfielder who would be more of a stopgap, someone who isn't going to go for a 7-year contract, but someone who could provide some real pop and could work with the other outfielders that they have right now. If they want to go the Hayward route, I think it's very smart. If you're going to overspend or spend whatever the market value is for Jason Hayward, you have to do it for a 26-year-old. I mean, the fact that he is 26 is the big selling point for me. And he is the best right fielder in baseball, at least according to his WAR, because of his defense of prowl. And I think people have kind of gotten over this idea that he's going to hit 30 home runs. So you re-sign Hayward. And you could sign a mid-tier starter, someone like Jeff Samardzija, someone like Mike Leake, a little bit down the line if you want to go that far down the line. Or if you feel like you need an ace, which I think the Cardinals do feel like they need one, you still have the Grinkies, the prices available. I thought Jordan Zimmerman was an unbelievable signing for the Tigers, and I think the Cardinals would have been dumb not to really push heavily for him. But there's still some great pitchers available. I think some pitchers to watch out for are Johnny Cueto. I would not sign him for the contract that the Diamondbacks signed him for, let alone something more. So it really begs the question: do the Cardinals go after the kind of the top pitchers and then settle for a kind of a mid power guy, or do you think they can afford both? There's been a report by Jared Krasnick today that said that the kind of interest in Chris Davis has been overblown. This is a guy who supposedly is going to make $140 million on the free agent market, the big home run hitter, low average, strikes out a ton. He walks, but he strikes out a ton. And the Cardinals, if they want to solve the issue of just pure power, isolated power numbers, Chris Davis would make sense. And I don't think anyone's going to be super upset if they found a way to sign Chris Davis. But the money there is going to be the issue. He is 5 months younger than Cespedes. But I think the St. Louis Cardinals are going to find a way to get a power bat this offseason. I'm not sure if it's going to be the top free agent or the top 3 free agents even. I'm not sure if they'll be able to outbid teams for Jason Hayward, who will likely get the largest team contract in history. Well, almost guaranteed to get the largest team contract in history unless he signs some shorter term deal to re-enter free agency. Again, all the Cardinals have to do is sign someone for a deal over $120 million, and that is the new record for the franchise. It shows you that a franchise who has been very successful has stayed away from the free agent market until this year, as at least it's been reported so. We'll see how it goes, but these next 2 weeks should be quite busy for the St. Louis Cardinals after signing Brandon Pena as the backup catcher. If they let him play, I like the move, but the real question will be, how much money are they spending this offseason? This might be the one to do it. I will say that. The pitching market after this year becomes quite thin next offseason, so if the Cardinals want to go all out, this year makes sense, especially if they want to keep competitive with the Chicago Cubs. And if you want to stick with that narrative, signing the younger guys makes sense. Signing a Jason Hayward would make sense. Ironically, the Cardinals haven't, or not ironically, but interestingly enough, the Cardinals have not really been linked to Zach Greinke at all. He's been linked to the teams out west. But again, going for a younger guy, Greinke 29, 30, it makes more sense than going after a guy who's 32 or so. So the Cardinals have some options on the pitching market. They could go mid-tier and they could shoot for the moon with Hayward, or they could flip that and maybe get creative in trades. But either way, they should have a busy offseason. The reason, though, I'll end it with this. I don't think Chris Davis is a necessary or an urgent signing by any means, is because we do have Matt Adams at first base, and I think he will bounce back. And if they don't, they'll find a way to work with that. Stephen Piscotty also can play first base. So having those two there and having the outfield, having some options in the outfield, there's some young guys as well. Holiday likely is last year. Grichuk in center. Piscotty you can play around in right. I understand it leaves some depth to be wanted, and that's why the Cardinals are targeting guys who can play first, who can play outfield, who can play third, who can play short and second, and that's why maybe a stopgap guy like Ben Zobrist would make sense on a 4-year contract, and then go for one of the top pitchers. That might be the way to go for the St. Louis Cardinals. Someone who can be kind of an uber utility man, as Derek Gould has noted in the past, and also improve the starting pitching rotation. And I think the Cardinals would have enough to return to the 100-win season they had last year. Thanks for watching, guys. My name is Jack McNeil of BaseballEssential.com. Thanks.